But for this one, I suppose because we can kind of face in a little bit to what's going on in the Premier League now, because Harvey, we're waiting for that confirmation alone because we know about Villa's PSR, UEFA issues, their cost ratios and all that. It's a season-long loan, Trev, with a buy obligation, and the suggestions are the buy obligation is 35 million quid. Now, we've been hearing all summer Harvey Elliott is 40 with a buyback clause or 50, and Liverpool have based that in the marker on the sand from the likes of Amari Hutchinson, haven't they, and others doing that type of deal. So that's a little bit weird. You know, we're thinking, and of course, like us, we're like, please let that be a nice smoother for Morgan Rogers, but it doesn't look like anything's happened on that just now. But Villa have been insane. They tried for Lucas Paqueta, didn't they? That one yesterday, but he scores, he kisses the badges, says, I'm going nowhere after trying to do that deal, which was funny because just for the record, we had clearly that Paqueta had asked West Ham to let him go. So there he is kissing the badge a few hours later. So just keep that in mind for the way footballers do it. Jadon Sancho as well, haven't they? They've got him on loan. United have finally got rid of one of the bomb squad there. So that's quite interesting at the same time. They've also got Victor Lindelof, the former United defender, you know, on a free. So they managed to get him. It doesn't look like they've got Emiliano Martinez off their books as well, didn't they? Because that was another high earner, unless something's going to break on a deal sheet that way as well. So, yeah, we were all hopeful, and we can be honest on this. Liverpool clearly have an interest in Morgan Rogers, and you thought that Harvey move, that's going to be a nice little smooth over that way, but it doesn't turn out to have been the case in this one. And then you go, another Carve quick one for you as we're talking. Sky Sports News are saying both clubs are still giving the official briefing right now. The Mark Gay deal is expected to happen. So that's the latest there.
Yeah, I've just got a text from Harry Redknapp.
Even how it's written
down. Yeah, do you mind rewinding there and clarifying for folks what's going on? Because I know we're going to get the question about 7 million times if we don't clarify it. So the loan with an obligation to buy, that allows for PSR to be massaged in the short term, and it allows Liverpool to take some money on the long term. That's question number one, if you wouldn't mind just clarifying that for people. And question number two is, did we not have a much higher book value in our heads for Harvey Elliott, and why has that changed?
Yeah, to both, in simple terms. It felt like we were allowing Villa to do a deal that they wouldn't pay anything now for Harvey Elliott, so that would help with their PSR. And then everyone hoped we would agree like a 70, 80 million move, for Morgan Rogers. So that would, help with their PSR figures as well. And that's why it's all been loans or free moves for Villa. So that was hoped for, but it's not happened. And then, it is still a little bit like there's just this wonderment. Have we given Villa, Harvey, a little bit cheap just because we want a good relationship for Morgan Rogers January or next summer? That's just it's the one thing people are thinking, aren't they? Because they just can't quite work out, okay, you've deferred it for a year for Villa, season loan with the obligation, we get that. But why 35 million? Why have you given Aston Villa a discounted price?
Huge amounts of people have that sum done in their heads, that there's some sort of gentleman's handshake has been done over Morgan Rogers for next summer. Let's see. There could be nothing to that. There could be something to that. I think people are trying to justify the amount in their heads when they see what some other players have gone for, Dave. It is a weird one because he is a Premier League proven talent. And it's, I think, very hard for some people to get their heads around why Liverpool don't believe he can be a Premier League talent with them. And that's not really for you to answer or me to answer. That's an Arne Slot call. If Jurgen Klopp was still at the club, we wouldn't be having this conversation, and everybody knows that. So these are the things that happen when you get different people who are making those calls in terms of personnel. You've started us on our Premier League trip via Villa and Monchi. And let's go to United now, because you already touched on Emi Martinez. Wasn't it United that were having a quick look at him, but they seem to have signed a Belgian in the interim, which is probably a good idea given the performance we saw the last day. And what is this Kobbie Mainoo thing? I thought he was the up-and-coming next biggest thing. And all of a sudden, he doesn't seem to have any favour at the club at all.
What I love is now happening. Remember we said at the start of the show, as we're talking, people would join like 10 minutes behind and they'll just repeat what we say. In the chat panel, everyone's like, a deal sheet has been submitted. You can now go to 9 o'clock. Like we said that about 12 minutes ago, but I love that everyone is now chatting amongst themselves. So if you are coming in late and you have missed it, Mark has a deal sheet, so it can go up till 9 o'clock, but Palace have got to green light that. That's the key thing there. But as Miguel Delaney's tweeted as well, the optimism is there because the deal sheet's gone in. It's just the final bit. And for this one, this is another one that we got the here we go from Fabrizio, but it's not been official yet, or United haven't announced it unless it's, happened since we started, but expected that they get this young Belgian in because all their keepers are hopeless, really, aren't they? Despite the amount they spent on them, that Onana and the other guy just absolutely stinking. And at the same time, United they've taken a massive hit on Anthony. He's gone to Betis, hasn't he, last minute with a loan fee? And I think the total value of the deal is like 20 million quid or something like that, which, considering they bought him for 90 million, wow, what a loss that is. And then the other one is even up to the deadline, Kobbie Mainoo was trying to leave, wasn't he? But he asked 3 times his R info. They just wouldn't let him go.
Yeah. At some stage, I think we'll probably do one of these. I'm springing this on you now, bud, but I think we should do one of these as a kind of a, when everything has settled, the dust has settled. Yeah. We should do an assessment of everybody's business. I thought that would be a really interesting show. Just to list out all the business that has been done and just walk through it in terms of our ideas on it. And I think we'll need one more anyway. We've been sort of hitting the old vein so much over the summer. We'll get it hard to leave this show. But if we move away from United and on to some of the other bits and bobs around the place, Sunderland you flagged up as a club doing a few little bits as well, including an ex-Arne Slot player, I believe.
Yeah, fair play to Sunderland. They've spent big money, and even on deadline, they're having a right go at this. And they've won a few games already in the Premier League, haven't they? And Gertrude, a player that we were linked with when we had a good look at when Arne Slot came from Feyenoord, first of all. So, they got him for a loan fee and a buy option. I think that's a brilliant move for Sunderland to get him there. They've also got Brian Brobbery, the former Ajax, former Red Bull, which, again, I'm not saying it's a player Liverpool would be interested in, but I think you've just got to put it in context. Sunderland have got promoted, and now, as people are suggesting, with Xhaka as well on top, I think it's around the 200 million mark they've spent. So you can't argue that they haven't had a go. And they've won 2 of their games so far. I think it's just going to be interesting this year. But Sunderland, for me, look like one that will stay up. It doesn't have the feeling of last year, when all 3 promoted teams were just absolutely hopeless. They've had a real go, but Sunderland, especially today, proper led the charge on this one.
Yeah, it's good to see, actually. It is good to see. And we go from Sunderland, who are, like, maybe surprising people with their business, to City, who have had a very miserable start. I don't like the way everyone's writing them off. I think that's really dangerous stuff. But I will say the business that I'm seeing here is mostly outgoing, with the exception of the goalkeeper situation. Is this Donnarumma thing going to happen at the death? And does it make sense for them to let Akanji go? A lot of people were wondering why we weren't sniffing around Akanji. I was like, because it's City and they're not going to sell anyone to us. And Gundogan is also, having been brought back to patch up a midfield, is off on his bike again. So a few bits and bobs, but let's start with the Donnarumma one, because that's fascinating. And I haven't heard what the status of that one is lately.
That is, as far as we're aware, we're probably waiting for a deal sheet like everyone else or confirmation. But he is in Manchester. We know all that much. He's travelled over, so it's all expected to happen for big money. Edison, he's on his way or was on his way earlier to Turkey. So again, that is expected to correlate. We're just waiting for an announcement on that. I think the one thing people are just struggling to get their heads around is Edison is the best keeper with his feet, isn't he? Zero doubt about that in the world. The other things is Alisson across the board. Zero doubt about that as well. Donnarumma, for all his attributes, isn't the best with his feet. And you saw yesterday that James Trafford, didn't you, get almost picked his pocket a few times. So I just wonder how Donnarumma, especially getting used to the Premier League and the pace and all that, goes into the mix. But it looks like City are doing this one. Akanji, again, we're waiting to go on loan to Inter. That's, again, should expect to be completed. There was funniest one was, there was a Turkish account that when Gundogan has fallen through, so all City fans were like, oh, we thought that had happened. And it turns out it's run by a Fenerbahce fan, because then a Galatasaray fan 5 minutes later put it up to say, oh, here he is with the Galatasaray shirts. They were just winding you up. So we're all expecting, again, the official announcement that way. The only thing to say is, and people are just tweeting this saying, Gay's just been confirmed. Just to be clear, the deal sheet's been submitted. That does not mean Crystal Palace have rubber stamped it just yet. And John, this is the funniest one. You'll love this, Trev, on one of our last transfers. John Maicester. Why are you talking about other clubs' transfers? I thought this was a Liverpool channel. I'm guessing, John, you haven't caught the 8,742 other shows we've done, and the former. But yes, just I'm afraid we do your Premier League and Europe because we're that generous at the same time.
John's been hanging around that chat for show after show. He knows exactly what we're doing. He's on the wind-up, as I'm sure is Mr. Fireburn there with his hoping he'll get us to shout about it because until we see it in any way confirmed officially, we won't be jumping across any fences and getting excited. Let's just do a bit of a wrap-up then. One of the interesting ones for me was Spurs. I think they've handled themselves quite well in this window, and there's a feel to Spurs I don't like, Dave, under this new manager. They might finally have cracked it. And the signing of Muani is a good one. He's a highly rated player. Wasn't he on loan at Juve from PSG last year? And something like a goal or assist in 50% of his matches. And that's not a bad old thing. Raheem Sterling is a kind of forgotten man of the Premier League. You've got a story about him. And we've also got at least one Brentford story. So wrap up the best of the rest for us.
Yeah, literally Muani, that's pretty much done. Again, we're waiting for an official confirmation. So they're interesting, Spurs. They've got a lot of attackers in, haven't we? And how they all gel together because they've looked good in certain games. They did well in the Super Cup, even though they lost to PSG. But in true Spurs fashion, they lost at home to Bournemouth in the weekend, didn't they? So you just still don't know what Spurs you're going to get. It'll be interesting to see how he gets on. Raheem Sterling. I mean, can you remember when he was the sort of super kid once upon a time? High and dry, Trev. No one's taken him. Fulham looked at it, but they've even picked young Tyreek George instead, haven't they? So that's been done. Reece Nelson, the youngster from Arsenal, he's at Brentford, awaiting that to be confirmed. Apparently, I haven't got it with me and I can't check my phone, but the deal sheet list is out now, people. So feel free to chuck it in here if you get it. When they get a list of who's in the 2-hour window now for extra time. So we haven't got it right now, but that deal sheet list is out and Sky have published it, apparently, and others. So if you've got it, feel free to chuck some names in here.
Absolutely, and Gibbo's doing that for us. So if you could, Eddie, if you've got the wherewithal to give us a few names in the chat there, that'd be great. In terms of those last couple of stories, the Sterling one's interesting. You mentioned that last story, Reece Nelson to Brentford. As you look around, Dave, the rest of the Premier League, there are some very interesting deals. But one that's been mentioned there in the chat panel, as one I wanted to drop on you here at the end, was we all know about Newcastle and their search for strikers, and they got the 9-foot lad in there recently, and that's great. And And then all of a sudden, I was hearing a story this morning about Asula leaving the club. So I'm sorry, but is that not mental? What? I thought they were trying to accumulate strikers, and all of a sudden Asula was leaving the club, and he wasn't going on loan. What I was hearing was the story about a permanent move. So that leaves me wondering: is the Vissa thing not dead? Is that one of the deals that's gone through? Oh, yes, it is. The deal sheet is in, buddy, and there Vissa is one of them. Okay, sorry, talk us through that, please. We don't mind.
Vissa is absolutely one of the deal sheets. But yeah, this whole Osula thing, and he scored against us as well, didn't he? Do you remember he's the lad that made it 2-2? And we were all sat there going, you absolute bunch of Geordie lying bastards. You had a striker all along, one that was valued around the 30 million mark. You were just absolutely milking this. And obviously it's backfired. They didn't get what they wanted. But yeah, it looks like this one's fallen through. And this sounds terrible. Eintracht Frankfurt, and we're going to play on the Champions League, have probably seen sense because Asula was bought for practically nothing, I think about 10 million. So to give them 30 million or around that mark would have seemed crazy. So yeah, that's absolutely not happened. But just to give you a few names of the deal sheet, Jackson, Bayern, Lamens, the keeper we mentioned, United have put in for him. Harvey Elliott and Jadon Sancho for Aston Villa. You know about Gay for us. Donnarumma and Edison are both on deal sheets. One that had gone completely quiet, Trev, Incape. Do you remember that just seemed to be like certain and gone that way as well? Muani, as we said, just looking through if there's anything really interesting. All names that are quite interesting. Traore is mentioned there for Sunderland. I wonder if that's the baby-oiled assassin. That would be a hell of a move, wouldn't it, really? I don't know if that is the case. Igor, the centre-back who pied Crystal Palace from Brighton, looks like he's a deal sheet with West Ham. So there is a really, really interesting one there. And Akanji, we mentioned him, Inter. That looks like it's going to go to the deadline as well. So, yeah, even in this next, hour and 37 minutes, there's a lot of deals are on a knife edge.
Can I just say how utterly disconcerting it is that on the deal sheet that we've got there, it says Isaac, Guehi to Liverpool. Don't like that. Don't like it. Don't like it being there. It's making me uneasy.